for being here so very quickly. We very much appreciate it. It's an important subject. Okay, on to Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here. Minister, I understand that you've received assurances from your EU counterpart that Canada would not be affected by the COVID-19 vaccine export controls. Has there been an agreement signed in writing regarding this, and can you table this today?
Thank you for that question for my honorable member. Yes, I have received repeated assurances from my counterpart as the Prime Minister has from the President, and it has been through telephone conversations.
Okay. Do you have any assurances that you've received that are binding or might carry penalties if the European Union subjects Canada to exports controls over the COVID-19 vaccine distribution?
As I have said, I have spoken to Commissioner Dombrovskis before the measure was introduced, after the measure was introduced. I've spoken to my counterpart in Belgium as well, and we have received repeated assurances that the mechanism that is in place will not affect the vaccine shipments that are coming to Canada. But this is very serious, and we take this very seriously, and will continue to work at this steadfastly.
So, Minister, you don't have anything in writing from any of the officials. You only have a verbal assurance, is what you're saying today.
I have multiple assurances through myself and through Minister Haidju and from the Prime Minister that vaccine shipments to Canada will not be affected by this mechanism.
Okay. The Executive Vice President and Commissioner for Trade for the EU stated, and I quote, "This time-limited and targeted system covers only those COVID-19 vaccines that were agreed by, quote, advanced purchase agreements with the EU. We don't see any statements that cover other countries like Canada. Can you table today information from the EU that advanced purchase agreements, such as from Canada, are also included?"
The member rightly points out that the EU has specified in its regulation that it is mindful of the advance purchase agreements contracted, and that they continue to respect those. And I certainly have been clear, as my colleagues have, that Canada expects that our shipments will not be delayed and will not be affected by this mechanism.
Okay. Minister, can you table these telephone conversations?
I have shared the readouts publicly as soon as they were completed, and they are available publicly already.
Ms. Gray, you're on mute.
There we go. Is Canada being added to the exemption list of countries?
Countries like our other trading partners, like the United States or Australia or the UK, are also not on this, are not on the exemption list. And as I have said to the honourable member, I have received assurances, as the Prime Minister, and we will continue to work on ensuring there are no delays to Canada's vaccine shipments.
So why would Canada not be on this list? And can you table information that outlines if Canada will be treated the same as countries that are on the exemption list?
The work that is being done by our missions on the ground, so what I like to say, the trade team, Canada's trade teams, who are there to serve Canadians, are working with their member state colleagues as well as with the European Union to ensure that, and the companies, to ensure that they are supported all the way along so that they are meeting the requirements set out in this mechanism. And we continue to do that work on the ground. I continue to do this work with my counterpart as my government colleagues are doing as well.
Okay. Now, the other part is companies seeking to ship vaccines outside of the EU bloc have to obtain prior authorization. Can you table any documentation of prior authorization allowing shipments of vaccines to Canada?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I think it is, you know, can I assure Canadians that that the mechanism that the EU has put forward will not delay or impact Canadian vaccine shipments? And there, the answer is yes, I have received assurances.
Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank the member for kicking off this debate on the standing orders. And like he said, I don't think this is a partisan issue. It's just ideas being laid before the House in order for PROC to consider it. So one of the things that he had said was the way we vote right now, I think I'm quoting him correctly, he said it was insane. But what about considering things like moving it from having 5 members stand in order to cause a vote to moving it to 12, which is the minimum number of members required for you to be recognized as a party in this House, to reduce number of votes that we have to do when we either agree and to carry more things by voice votes, which I have tried to impel and compel members that this is a better way of doing things, to just carry on with the business of the House without having to force every issue as a vote. There are many private members' bills and even government bills where a voice vote would be sufficient. What does the member think of that?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it's an excellent question. And you have to understand why it is that we want to see that those votes occur. And that's what PROC really needs to assess. So, for example, there's a lot of validity for someone to say, I want a recorded vote on X, because you want to see that MP or parties or whatever it might be literally stand in their place and have that vote. And I think that there's a lot of merit in terms of retaining that, because it does have a great deal of value. What doesn't have a lot of value is when you have 500 votes on the same bill and it's all voting the very same way and they're all identical. Now, why do both occur? One's easily justified, another one might be a bit more challenged. But if we take the politics to the side and give a different lever, we might be able to overcome it. And that's something that PROC needs to figure out.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for La Pointe de Lille. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member went quickly through the electronic voting issue. Personally, I think that it's quite terrible to see how we vote now and the time that it takes. I don't know if he could tell us more about this, about electronic voting. I think it would be safer. It would save us a lot of time, hours in fact, and that would allow greater debate in the House. And it would be more economical. The cost of spending 3 hours with 338 MPs is quite high. So I'd like to hear my colleagues' thoughts on that.
Well, Parliament Secretary.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I think of electronic voting, it's not necessarily what it is that we have today. It's more so we have the technology in which if there's a vote that's called, you push a button that's virtually right in front of you at your seat. And then you get that instant numbers being portrayed on a screen or whatever it might be. Other jurisdictions have it. It's something in which we can do. But I also do believe there is merit in terms of looking at possible applications. I'm thinking in terms of MPs that come from areas of the country that are very difficult to be in Ottawa, that might assist in terms of that application type of voting. So I wouldn't rule that out. But what's really important to recognize on my voting thoughts is that we do not vote on Fridays, nor do we vote on Monday mornings. That will help individual MPs no matter what side political party they're participating in.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for New Westminster, Burnaby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for his speech, and of course for the public who are tuning in. Why we're debating standing orders today during a pandemic is because there's an obligation in the standing orders to have this debate within a short time period from a new parliament's beginning. So I wanted to come back to the member identifying a number of issues that Procedure and House Affairs would have to look at. Would he agree with me that Procedure and House Affairs should also look at the question of confidence, which has been gone far beyond in this minority parliament the normal practice of confidence being budgetary matters and a very clearly worded confidence motion. The government has made it a very fluid definition, seems to have applied it in a number of different ways that I don't believe are appropriate. Would you agree with me that Procedure and House Affairs should be looking into this question as well?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, a short response, please.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I do believe that it would be value in doing that, but the real value would be saying to a standing committee that maybe when they do the standing orders, there is an argument to be made that it be done in camera. If we want to really achieve. The member's been around for many years, as I have, and it's how do we achieve these rule changes and modernize?
Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy to be joining this debate. Like the previous member, none of what I'm about to say is my party's position because we don't have one here. I think it's important that backbenchers be heard, whether they be in opposition parties or in the government caucus. I think that's an important part of what we do. I also believe that all standing order changes should be agreed to unanimously. It should never be rammed through by either side. It's been done in past decades, both liberal and conservative, and I don't think it breeds harmony in the chamber to at least agree on the basics of the rules. And I think we can all agree that the rules exist to protect backbenchers especially. And as the caucus chair for my recognized party in this chamber, my first job is always to represent the backbench when it comes to speaking with the leadership. So I have 8 points I'm going to make. I know that the previous member from Winnipeg had 3, but they had a lot of sub-points to it. So I'm going to try to keep it brief to then maybe get into it more in questions and answers. I think we need to move debate in this chamber so it looks more like the United Kingdom, the mother parliament, where a member can cede their time to another member without having to include you, Mr. Speaker, into the debate. And so a member can cede their time to entertain a comment, a question, and then take back the time when they feel they've given sufficient to another person. Debate in this chamber has become stultified. I think that's the nicest term I can use to what I see going on. Members come in and they read their speeches, whether they've written it themselves. And I know that the standing orders say we shouldn't be doing that. And I'll be the first one to admit in my first year here, I did the same thing. I would write out my speeches because I felt more comfortable. And it was a crutch. And as one of the members from Saskatchewan, who's been here much longer than I have, said it is a crutch that you have to get rid of in order to really get into the debate. It forces you to read the legislation, come to understand the positions that other members have, and really engage in the debate, which was the original purpose of the chamber like this, to actually have meaningful debate.
Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Carleton. We're not getting any sound. I just wonder if the Honourable Member for Carleton can just check the mute button there.